Oh, yeah. You got two dudes with hair gel and the one dude with the best lid game of the three. Welcome back to the Five to Go podcast, where we're definitely going to dig in on all that was Nashville. And might I just say, opinion in the opener, three bangers of finishes there in Music City. Okay, so we're going to talk about Nashville. I guess they call Memphis Music City too, and Detroit they call it that. I don't know, a lot of music cities, but Nashville certainly is one. We're going to talk about that, why were brake rotors going kaput, how did Cleetus do, what our thoughts were about that. You probably saw what the result was, if not the whole race. We'll look ahead to Michigan, and we'll talk about how we're feeling about the point standings after 14 cup races here on the Five to Go podcast. Can you believe we are in the month of June, everybody? Welcome to the show. I can't believe it. I feel like the Daytona 500 was just a couple of weeks ago. I would be wrong. I'm your co-host, who is wrong a lot, Doug Fireball Turnbull from the traffic team at 11 Alive News, WXIA TV here in Atlanta with Rachel Cox-Rosen, Atlanta Journal-Constitution Gridlock guy, and honored to be part of the Performance Racing Network announcing team. I was not part of the team there this weekend in Nashville. I'd love to be at some point. They did an excellent job, and I'm so glad that although Charlotte had some good racing, especially the O'Reilly race there just a week ago, they just got killed by rain. The whole schedule got killed by rain, that is, and my buddies on PRN had a tough time there. So I'm glad that it was a little bit more normal, although also a little rainy at Nashville Super Speedway. Welcome to the show. We're going to jump right in here with introductions. First off, donned in his special Chris Buescher t-shirt there for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. He's at the beach, which means he's eating Cinnadust every single morning. He is well tanned, well rested, with the family in Orange Beach, Alabama. He's your UNG graduate, roving racing journo, and for once not at work, Devin Kupka, hashtag hire Devin Kupka. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Taking some time to relax here on vacation in the southern shores of Alabama. It's an overcast day, so we shouldn't, the sun's not coming out as much, so should be protected.
That is not how science works, but it definitely makes you feel just a little bit better. UV rays can actually be even worse potentially, so be sure and lather up there. Dan and I are going to get into a race right now to race toward the shores of Alabama to see which of us can oil you up first. Okay, so respond right here. Who lathers up Devin first? Respond right here. Okay. Oh, did Dan just hang up? Did Dan? Okay, no, just kidding. I'm sorry. That is no way to treat a 2018 Georgia Racing Hall of Fame inductee, championship-winning Cup Series crew chief there, master of transmissions, maker of speed, Dawsonville, Dan Elliott. Great to see you, sir, and apologies for the awkward moment. Hashtag not sorry.
That's okay. If I was going to send Devin anything right now, it'd be a quart of Mobile One, and then he could just pour it, and he could just do his own lathering up, and we'd go from that. But hope everybody is good. Summertime has definitely arrived, and with it comes the humidity and everything else. And I'm looking forward to supposedly this week, as we go on in deeper into it, 1st of June, is supposed to be a little bit drier, and air is supposed to be a little bit drier. So we're going to make the best of this before the humidity of summer does get here.
No doubt. Dan, go ahead, Devin.
I brought the Dawsonville traffic with me because I've never seen this place so packed before. It's been getting busier and busier, but now it's like strolling through downtown Dawsonville on a weekend with all the traffic that's up there. So the traffic
Devin,
is down here for a week.
I think you pulled a vacuum and you just sucked the traffic out of the northernmost part of the country down through our part of the country.
Got it. Okay. I got a little the Yankee driving sticker there on Devin. Yep. That's right. There you go. Yeah, Atlanta, by the way, which I don't know if they considered Dawsonville rolled into greater Atlanta area when they did this ranking, but a recent Consumer Affairs, I believe, study had Atlanta as the 8th worst in the United States. I hate, as a traffic guy here, I actually don't love the traffic ranking things because there's always a catch with those. I read them, I'm like, I don't think that's measured correctly.
That's because Dawsonville was 1 through 7.
Oh, okay. Dawsonville, Georgia is worse than Greater Metro Atlanta. Okay,
No,
respond right
ranked
here.
1 through 7, and Atlanta was 8.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is hefty. That's kind of like stacking the ballot box for most popular driver award. That's never happened to Dawsonville. That has
No,
never
never.
happened. Hey, by the way, a tip of the cap. We're going to get to the race in here. Congratulations to our winners for this weekend: Denny Hamlin, Justin Allgaier, yet again, and Lane Riggs, who is kind of taking over as the Truck Series regular that's making the most noise. Congratulations to them. They put on quite a show for stock car racing fans over this past weekend. But a little tip of the cap to Chase Elliott. A good rebound finish. He struggled with his car, used some pit strategy to cement himself into the top 10 in Nashville. But tip of the hat to him. He said it now 2 weekends in a row that much like Bill Elliott did when Dale Earnhardt died, Chase wants Kyle Busch to be, or he wants to take his name out of the ring for most popular driver in hopes that Kyle Busch would win it, which I got to think that if that were the case, that he probably would. I would think if people were given the option to vote posthumously. So I just tip of the cap to him. And again, he's not saying I'm giving up any real trophies. The most popular driver thing's cool, but he wouldn't give up a race win to give it to Kyle Busch, I don't think. Although he'd probably give up all of them, and I think every driver would to have him back with us, no doubt. So tip of the cap to Chase Elliott for that gesture there. And, I hope they do something like that, Dan, just like they did in 2001. I got that right, didn't I? Bill actually took his name out of consideration so Earnhardt would win. I know Earnhardt did win it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Thought so. So the Elliott family top shelf as always. Now, hey, we're gonna jump in here. Denny Hamlin, like I said, the race winner, but there's so much more to this event. You look at it, and those of you that don't like Denny Hamlin, oh crud, he won again. I don't like, but man, how he got there. How it happened, it really wasn't his to win. It looked like it might be Zane Smith's to kind of snatch with some fuel strategy, and then Christopher Bell seemed to have the best car once he overcame Zane Smith, and then the issue we're going to talk about later, pow, Chris Buescher, exploding brake rotor, brought out a final yellow that set up a late strategy push, and in the end, although it was a green-white checkered, it was a banger of a finish. Let me use that term again to make myself sound cool. So let me come to you, Dev. I don't really sound cool. Let me come to you. What was your impression of what you saw, not only the Cracker Barrel 400, but anything else from the concrete 1.3 miler in Nashville?
Well, it was a bunch of late nights at Nashville Super Speedway this weekend, and I feel for all the people that are on the East Coast like you two right now. But yeah, it was the truck race started late, the Cup race started later than normal, and but I gotta say, this racing at Nashville Super Speedway, ever since it was reintroduced back to the schedule, and for the first time in 2021 on the Cup Series side of things, the racing there has been really good, and we saw another great race, especially on Sunday night. You might have to take the cake with that maybe being the best race of the year, or right next to Echo Park Speedway from back in February. But we saw this was an everything race. You had the chaoticness of what would be a super speedway race. You had the attrition with the brake rotors and all of that. You didn't know when those were going to go with the different drivers that had problems with that. You had, as I mentioned, the chaoticness, the brake rotors, and you also had the great racing as well. And I think this is just, if you wanted everything that you could have, whether it was something with pit stops, attrition, and just cautions, I think you got everything in this race, and it was a really good race. I mean, how about Denny Hamlin, who started the very beginning of the race? The green flag has to go down pit road and then ends up winning the race in the end. And how about that racing action that we saw with 5 laps to go at the end? I mean, that was incredible. I mean, you can't. I think this is the definition of an everything race. It's like getting an everything bun, right? You got everything in this.
Getting an everything bun. I like that. Yeah, when I used to get fish sandwiches at Burger King, I would have them make it like a Whopper, put everything on it, have it your way. I feel like it had a little bit. Maybe if it wasn't the best race, like number one of the year in every single category, it had a high ranking in each category to make it combined as one of the better races here out of the 14 in the Cup Series in 2026. I did misspeak earlier. I'm so sorry. You're right. It was not a green, white, checkered finish. It was a 4-lap green flag shootout to the end there, which means their last yellow flag was with 5 to go. Okay. Dan, how about you, man? What did you think about it? You've seen Cup races at the Nashville Fairgrounds. You've seen a lot, and have you? Do you remember last lap battles as such? It seems like that maybe the first time. Well, no, it's not the first time this year. Atlanta certainly had that. Daytona certainly had it, but it seems like it happened, even though it was a late restart, kind of organically. So, what did you think about what we saw late Sunday night?
Well, let me start in the beginning at the get-go, because for me, watching Denny jump the flag, as blatant as that was, it was like he lost his mind on the restart, and somebody on the radio must have yelled "Go, go, go," because he took off. And from the get-go, this was everything. It had everything in it, I think, but the kitchen sink, because it gave you action on pit road. The things that we saw on pit road, the mistakes that were made, there were things that we saw there. The action on the racetrack, because it wasn't just at the front of the field, it was at times all through the field, and I love that. And then you had the question of, as it unfolded about the brake rotors, you were wondering if other teams were going to have issues with the brakes as well. And then it got down to the last stages, and then down to the final laps, and it just kind of got better. But Doug, Devin, do you realize one thing out of this is, as bad as people that we have talked to, and people that have voiced what they think of the Toyotas to us, do you realize that had you removed the Toyotas from this race, on the outside now looking back, how boring that race would have been if you would have taken the Toyotas out of this race?
You think it would have been more boring, or would just different cream rise to the top? I guess what would have made it more boring?
Look at where the excitement came from.
Okay.
All right, and I'm just taking what I see. I'm not advocating that I'm for it or against it. I'm just pointing out the sheer fact that look at what we saw, because you take the Toyotas out of that deal, because it was a 3-wide deal in those last laps that made the end of that race.
Yeah, no doubt. So basically, if you put 3 Chevys there, do they handle like that? Or are they on? Or
Well,
do you throw
3 Chevys there, so you have to look at what was there.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. It certainly was the big show.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not anything against anybody else. And if you'd have taken them out, it would have been other cars. But let's just take it for what it was. It made the last of that race, because I never dreamed that 3 cars could run 3 wide as hard as they were running to run to those last laps to the flag.
We did see a decent amount of balance. I mean, the Toyotas led the most laps, but we did see a decent amount. Again, strategy dictated a lot of this. If you could get away on a restart, Shane Van Gisbergen led, I think it was 12 laps. Did I just see that? Yeah. Yes, 12 laps. He finished in the 5th spot. And Devin's going to reconnect there in just a moment there. He was getting a little wind interference in the sound, and I know the construction. Good Lord, I'm tired. I've been up since my morning shift here. The connection a little bit shaky. You make a good point, Dan, but it seemed like other manufacturers had a bite of the apple, but who had the core, the stem, and most of the pulp? That was certainly the Toyotas there. Let me run down the top 10 finishers, because they really put on a show. And to make that 3-wide deal happen, and Chase Briscoe nosed it in there 3 wide, and probably at some point thought better of it. He probably wished he'd followed one or the other down and seen if he could have made it a 2-car battle. You have to have not only the handling, but you have to be a wheelman. Does a driver of lesser ability hang it in there like Denny Hamlin did under Christopher Bell and make it stick? And a lot of Cup drivers do have similar ability, but you were looking at drivers at the very top of their game, despite kind of a sloppy race, and a lot of cautions, which really were more mechanical than just people wrecking. But there were some dumb wrecks in this race. Corey Heim spinning, Todd Gilliland, as great as Corey Heim is, and by the way, full-time Cup driver next year, will place Riley Herbst on that third 2311 team in the 35 or whatever number that becomes, okay? You saw the Austin Dillon thing, right, where Dillon got into Keselowski one point, but before that, Keselowski, like, chopped across Dillon's nose. He checked up, and Dillon got spun. You saw some sloppy stuff. All that to say, there is no – when you saw how hard it is, we'll talk about it in a moment, for Cleetus McFarland to be able – to just race side by side in the back of the O'Reilly pack. And McFarland has great car control. He is good at drifting. He knows a ton about cars, and he's trying extremely hard. You saw how hard it was for him to race side by side with Logan Bearden. And then look at what they were doing 3 wide to win a Cup race with the pay window open. All right? That's how hard this stuff is. And McFarland even noted he felt a little better about himself when Denny Hamlin spun out on his qualifying lap at Dover. He's like, okay, that just shows I'm not totally crazy, right? Like, okay, like, even the good guys mess up sometimes. So just cheers to them. Yeah, I'm just giving cheers to everyone. Cheers to Chase Elliott for being a nice guy, about Kyle Busch, all that stuff. Cheers to these leaders for racing hard. Here's the top 10 as Devin joins us back. Denny Hamlin was first. Didn't have the best car, but did lead the most laps, 57 in this race. Kyle Larson, he beat him by 1 with 56 laps. Kyle Larson spun out. He ran over brake rotor debris, cut a tire. He thought it was a brake rotor anyway, piece of debris, cut a tire, and spun out trying to get to pit road at the very end of that race there. Larson's winless route continues. Second goes to Christopher Bell, who beat himself up afterwards. Another race, late race restart, going for it. Bell doesn't get it done. He's kind of having one of those years where I wonder if he's going to go winless, and you look back on it and go, man, I missed out like 7 chances to win. It just feels like the dark cloud is over the 20 team now, even though they've got their mojo back. Chase Briscoe's up and down, uneven results continue. This, though, with 14 laps led in a third-place finish. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I knew he finished 4th, but I didn't know until 24 hours after the race that part of the reason why is because they bolted on, Mike Kelly and the 47 team bolted on 4 fresh feel-goods for that final restart, and he drove from 13th to the 4th position, passing guys like 3 and 4 wide on the bottom line. Fun to watch. And Shane Van Gisbergen, who finished 5th, part of the reason Stenhouse made up those last couple of spots is Van Gisbergen and 7th place finisher Chase Elliott were banging doors, racing hard, washed up the track, and old Stenhouse went right under them. That was fun. Again, what a great race. Now, between 5th and 7th, we had 6th place finisher Tyler Reddick. You guys saw this, right? Scary crash, honestly, after the checkered flag. Reddick got waylaid head on into the outside wall. When Chase Elliott basically got a bad push from Ryan Blaney as they were coming across the start-finish line there. Reddick, as far as we know, checked out okay. But that was scary stuff. And honestly, the worst crash he's had all year, and he still finished 6th because it happened at the checkered flag. They were very similar, by the way, to what was going on coming to the checkered flag at the Daytona 500 that Reddick won, involving the same drivers. Stenhouse was ahead of him. Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney, just saying. Blaney finished 8th, and a good showing for what was otherwise a tough night for Penske. 9th went to Zane Smith, who we said milked the fuel there at the end, and almost didn't pit at the end of the race. They thought about trying to stretch it out, but knew the tires wouldn't last. And Carson Hocevar, who ran over several guys last night, kind of went back to his old ways. He caused the biggest wreck of the night where he pinched up Chris Buescher, and that wrecked Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman, I believe Brad Keselowski was in that. There was a couple different wrecks. But anyway, Hocevar was the straw in the drink in kind of a bad way. He finished 10th. Nods, too, to Eric Jones, 11th, and Ty Dillon finishing 12th. And even though A.J. Allmendinger blew a brake rotor and finished in the back of the pack, 35th, Allmendinger won stage 1 on pit strategy, staying out or doing, either no tires or 2 tires, and then just holding his track position with a really good restart. So, man, the soil was tilled, boys. Saw a lot of different people have a lot of chances to do some big things there. So that was the event. Daniel Suarez won stage 2, by the way, after winning the Coca-Cola 600 just a week ago. And he struggled with brake issues and other things as well, but was able to finish 19th and salvage the night. Now, looking at the points, I want to just say, Tyler Reddick, I'm worried about him. Tyler Reddick has not won since April. All right? We need to put the 45 team on a little wellness watch, okay? They have not won since April, everybody. They haven't won since Kansas, and neither has Kyle Larson, except it was Kansas of last year. Okay, sorry, I just had to throw that in there. Okay, no, but Tyler Reddick is now down to a double-digit points lead. I'm worried. 97 points. My gosh, is he going to make it? Okay. These guys are just looking at me like, will he stop? But Denny Hamlin is second in the standings. And then you've got Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott, and Ty Gibbs, who falls a spot to fifth there. He swaps positions there with Chase Elliott. Gibbs, by the way, the only Toyota that didn't punch at or above its weight. It feel like he bled spots most of the night there, so he was a little behind his teammates. And then looking on the other side of things, trending downward, I want to get your comments on this, and I'll go to Devin first. Ryan Preece, if you include the All-Star race, 3 horrible, no good, very bad finishes in a row. A piece of brake rotor cut his, or rather damaged his radiator and took him out of the running in Nashville after a bad crash in Charlotte. The Dover race didn't go well. And then he got the minus 25 points, which the penalty was upheld in Texas for the arrow spin, although he didn't really wreck Ty Gibbs. Anyway, he's down to 17th in points. Austin Cindric had a rough finish, but actually jumps a spot to 16th. Bubba Wallace caught up in a crash, not his fault. He's down to 15th in the standings there. Brad Keselowski crashed down to 13th in the standings also. So, Devin, when you look at where drivers are trending, Bubba Wallace, it seems like he would trip on the sidewalk at this point, the way the luck has gone. And same with Ryan Preece. Where do you kind of think things are shaking up here? Joey Logano, 18th in points. Some of the other guys behind Logano, McDowell, Smith, Jones, are running better lately. I mean, who maybe should be most worried that's on bubble watch right now, I guess?
Yeah, I think, so I always say with how the Fords have gone this year, think about it, right? We've had Priest won the Clash, but that was a non-points race back in early February. Then you also had Blaney win at Vegas. Was it Vegas in March, correct? You had him win at Vegas in March. But we haven't gotten a Ford win in the Cup Series in almost 3 months. So, Joey Logano, I think, is a driver to be concerned about, and where the Ford organization is as well. I don't have the point standings pulled up in front of me, but where is Austin Cindric located in the point standings?
Cindric swapped spots with Ryan Preece, and he now leads Preece by 2 points in 16th. So he is the guy on the block.
Yeah, I think to be concerned, I think you're going to be around that cut line. But I think if you're a Ford, I would be a little bit concerned, because it's not just a Team Penske thing, but I think it's a front row, maybe outside of Zane Smith right now, who's having a good run, had a good run at the Coke 600 last weekend, and then at Nashville on Sunday. But the Fords overall just feel like they haven't been super competitive. But I mean, it has been in a year that Toyotas have been dominating with Reddick and with Hamlin. I would say if you're a driver of a Ford, you got to start putting some more consistent finishes together, because everybody's starting to gang up here. And as we get ready to head into the chase, just 2 months away from that, I would say, if you're a Ford, I'd be a little concerned right now.
Oh, no doubt. The highest ranking Ford in the point standings, probably easy to guess, Ryan Blaney. He's third. But then you got to go back to 8th for Chris Buescher, who has had also a couple of rough weeks in a row. I mean, he's solidly in the bubble there, so to speak. But he's had 2 bad weeks in a row. 8th in points. And then you've got to go down to Brad Keselowski, 13th. So 2nd, 8th, 13th, and 16th. That's 4 of the top 16. And, I mean, maybe that sounds almost balanced because there's 16 and there's a few less Fords out there. But, but if you're not able to make up for some of your mistakes, and that's where we've seen, Dan, the mistakes. Ryan Preece, whether we agree or not, he had 25 points taken away. Right, and then you had the freak stuff, really stuff that's not his fault. He's been caught up in other people's mess these last few weeks. Dan, I mean, what do you think about it all, and how do you feel too? You keep saying the Hendrick cars are going to catch fire, and while Chase Elliott has 2 wins, that has easily been the highlight for Father Rick's team.
I think when you look at the Fords, I think you have to go back to what I said before. And the fact that there are no Fords in the O'Reilly series now, or if there are, I'm not aware of it.
The only one that's run the last 2 weeks, interrupt, J.J. Yaley has run a starting park for RSS Racing, which is a Chevy team, but they're using one of their old Fords.
All right, so this
none.
is where I say this is what catches up with you in the fact that you got no driver development, you got no data, you've got nothing to carry forward and develop your series throughout the whole thing, because I feel like this is where Hendrick and Junior and all the rest of the teams are using that to their benefit to gain technology, to gain information, to develop their drivers and put a program together that is more longer term than one season. And I feel like this is what you get into when you don't plan, when you don't have this development, when you don't have any way to carry data forward, that this is what you get. And then you add that to the fact that, as you said, as we've progressed through the year, the Ford drivers, it's not that they're that bad, but there's been situations that have either given them a bad race, so to speak, or it's taken them out of an event. And those things are going to happen. And you kind of have to program that into your year, that you're going to have to say that in the year of, let's say, 36 races, that 10%, 20% are going to be races that you're going to have trouble. And then if you don't, then you say you have gotten through the year and you're above the cut line, you're above the average line on what the year is going to give you. Because there'll be some years that you can do no wrong, there'll be years you can do no right. And
Yeah.
and we've seen that, but I feel like that Ford's deal is across the board. I don't look at the individual cars as much as I do the organization and what it's lacking in putting together the total package.
I
Well,
think to Dan's,
go ahead, Devin.
I think to Dan's point, I don't think it's an individual team thing we can look at, whether it's Penske or Roush Fenway Keselowski. I think it's an organizational thing with Ford Racing. Where are they at right now? And I mean, they don't even field an O'Reilly Auto Parts full-time team, really. So who is in that development pipeline? Because you're relying on your guys. Because one thing too is these drivers are not going to stay with these organizations forever, and you eventually have to train the next generation. Whereas maybe you look at a Chevrolet or a Toyota group, right? They looks like they're loaded with developmental talent, but Ford, it's like, what do we have here that's going to sustain this long term? Because they have at least 6-7 rides in the NASCAR Cup Series right now, but you got to eventually put more into that, because we got a Brad Keselowski who's aging, Chris Buescher rumored to potentially moving teams, but it's just a matter of what's next. You might not have to worry about it today, tomorrow, next week, or next year, but what's going to happen 4 years down the line? It's not necessarily easy nowadays to take somebody from Chevrolet, put them over to Ford, or Toyota, put them over to Ford. So I think this is an organizational problem with Ford right now, and it might go beyond Ford Racing. It might go where the headquarters are with Ford Motor Company, and where they're situated with when it comes to producing cars, where they're sitting in the car market right now. So I think there's something bigger going on with Ford, that there's all these issues popping up.
Well, and I think that things are more tenuous now for automakers than they have been, because if we want to just really expand out, cars are lasting longer. People a little tighter with their money. The auto industry is at a fork in the road. And Dan, you could speak to this more than I can. Maybe Dev could speak to this more than me. I don't know. But the auto industry is at a fork in the road about electric vehicles. They were hot for a minute, then it just went away, and then there's a little bit of a rebound, and we don't know. It's like developmentally, you don't know where you're going, because you want to do things that are sustainable, but you also want people to buy your cars. And then there's just the matter too, and this is just the cold hard facts. As much as NASCAR is popular and is sustaining, F1, and we say this almost every episode, is at the center of the cultural zeitgeist. And although I think they're starting to have a reckoning, and maybe a little bit of the shine, just as a little bit of the shine is going away, that they have the sexiness level. They just do. That's what people think of immediately when they think of racing right now. The average person that doesn't prefer a type of motorsport. Okay? So, Ford, what did they just do? Cha-ching, Red Bull. Red Bull Racing in F1, that is. All right? That has to come from somewhere. and you're not, and I mean, I don't know what different people's auto sales are. I know that Honda and Nissan have been struggling and things like that and they've, upped their F1 efforts too. Honda has. It's got to come from somewhere, right? And it's probably not, somewhere a 20th place O'Reilly team suddenly doesn't have a backing. You only have a few truck teams and you have select investment here. And that's not to dump on Ford because they've got some great teams and great drivers. By the way, on the other side, I was just looking to where the different Fords are in the standings. Who would have bet 14 races in that the Penske satellite affiliated Wood Brothers Josh Berry 31st in points? He's behind Ty Dillon, behind Gregson, behind Herbst.
Nope.
And I saw a stat that he has gotten 24 DNFs in his 3 Cup seasons. He averages about roughly 9 a season. And that stat also said, now I didn't come up with this. This was shared on the NASCAR Reddit. Kevin Harvick took over 500 Cup starts to get 24 DNFs. And I know things have changed.
Does this paint a picture for you in the fact that a good driver, he can either look good in an organization or he can look bad in an organization. And this is how little it takes for a good driver to look bad in Cup Series.
Yeah, and he is a good – what did they say about him when they picked him in 2023 to be Kevin Harvick's replacement? He is what? A turnkey, Cup-ready driver.
He's a good driver.
And he is a good driver. I'm not debating that. It's astounding to me. A lot of it is bad luck, but at some point, I mean, Kevin Harvick had the same amount of luck over 500 starts. Like, it's not just luck, right? 4 DNFs, I think, is the number this year if I'm looking at it. Only 15 laps led.
He's also gotten caught up in some bad situations
totally
as the years progress.
As he did on Sunday night, by the way, where he just – you look over, and it's kind of – do y'all find this interesting when the Gen 7 cars crash? It's almost like they die of internal bleeding. And I'm not trying to make light of that. I know that sounds stupid, but hear me out. It's like it almost makes more sense. Like if you saw a human that had a huge wound and they were dead, whereas if somebody was just dead and they had just gotten hit by something and there was just a little bit of bruising. Like these cars will hit and they're driving along and it doesn't look all that bad. And they're like, toe link's bent, this is bent, that's bent, we're out. And that says a lot about the engineering and the underbody and all the things that could go wrong that you just can't see. And I know I took us off track with that, but every time they hit, I'm kind of like, well, that didn't look that bad. And then it's just dragging and, is horrible, basically. Josh Berry that's what happened to him Sunday night. Another one here, not a Ford, a Chevy, Connor Zilic, 34th in points, back-to-back, back-of-the-field finishes. In Charlotte, he probably could have slowed down for Austin Cindric to spin a little better. This one, who's the first one to cook a brake rotor. Connor Zilic has 3 less points than Cole Custer. He only has 30 more points than the last full-time driver that's run every race this year, Cody Ware. That's crazy. In fact, Alex Bowman missed 4 races and has 13 more points this year than Connor Zilic. I mean, we know being a rookie is a struggle, Devin, but I didn't have that on my I would have taken the under on that, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is by far, if you look at any driver that's full-time in the Cup Series right now, Connor Zilic is by far the biggest disappointment in the Cup Series this year. Just looking at his stats just have not been good. And I get he's a rookie. Cup Series is a whole different beast when you compare it to the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series or the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. But to be basically bottom 3 in the point standings and you're multiple positions down below somebody that missed 4 races already this season is really just astounding and really just he's having a brutal season. But I didn't think because I think the expectations on him were so high with how successful he's done in the lower series and in other forms of motorsports. The expectations were a little bit higher than what would typically be of a NASCAR Cup Series rookie. But for him to be bottom 3 in the point standings is just incredible to see. And I didn't expect that to happen this year. And just to see that performance come out so flat, it's just so I didn't expect to see that. And he's just having a really, really bad season. It's not a really good look for him and the sponsorship to be that far back in the point standings, given how much talent he had coming into this situation. I didn't see it coming, but Trackhouse overall this season hasn't been all that awesome outside of SVG winning Watkins Glen. That could possibly play a role into it, but we've been able to see Zillage is just good in multiple different areas. It's just we haven't seen that happen this year, and I think it really just the fact that he is numerous points behind and a couple of positions behind somebody that's missed races this year. And another thing too, and I hope this isn't too early to bring up, but how long is it going to take for him to pass Kyle Busch in the point standings? Busch sitting at 217 right now, and how much does Zillage have?
Zillage has, gosh, what, 147? Yeah. So that's 70-point difference. Although NASCAR has officially taken Kyle Busch out of the point standings, which I understand it's being sensitive because you don't want to see someone who's deceased fall in the points each week. But it's like, how do you take a name out of the record book? That's like taking John F. Kennedy out of the president's thing because he had an incomplete. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to be. Sorry, maybe I'm sounding insensitive. I just, he's in the record book. He ran 12 races this year. And the All-Star race, like, how do you take that out? I don't know, but yes, I'm glad you had that number because in the point standings I'm looking at, I can't even see what points Kyle Busch had. In fact, I was wondering why there are only 35 drivers, and again, that's part of the eeriness of somebody just being ripped from our existence. Is I didn't know what happened to the 36th driver. Was I'm looking all the way down to B.J. McLeod, and all that stuff. It's because they took Kyle Busch out of it. So, hey Dan, I want to ask you just a quick question. We want to move on here and kind of round the bend about Connor Zillage. There's no doubt his talent. Devin pointed it out. He has 2 O'Reilly wins this year, and I know those are easier to come by. I honestly think that coming into this season, just given his O'Reilly Auto Parts Series success, because he did it on ovals too, he had leapfrogged, in a way, Shane Van Gisbergen in the pecking order, as if there was a hot free agent that had come on again, no one's in danger right now, but I think there was a thought, like, if Shane Van Gisbergen really struggled again and the Trackhouse team could go out and get, I'm just making this up, Ryan Blaney, whatever, some big name, like SVG would be the Daniel Suarez of a year ago. That's kind of how it felt, despite him winning 5 races last year. Not extremely, but just a little bit. So I want to ask you this. It obviously hasn't panned out that way. SVG is up there, in the playoffs. Chastain has struggled. Is Zillage struggling from I've been able to push my equipment and do whatever I wanted and screw up a little bit and it not take me out of contention in the lower series and make up for it with my driving talent? Whereas in Cup, it takes just perfect execution. Should maybe Connor Zillage, Dan, be trying to hit singles and doubles instead of trying to hit home runs with a car that doesn't have the speed?
You can sit here and play armchair quarterback on all of this and try to figure out, but I really think it comes down to the fact that, yes, he's been successful coming up through. So have a lot of other drivers that have suffered through the same ills. So you're just trying to get acclimated to the upper echelon of this organization. And also, too, you're trying to balance the chemistry of who you've been working with before or the situations you've been working with before. And this is a delicate balance, as we well know. Look at the Kyle Busch RCR balance and how that worked out, because we really thought from the get-go that deal would be a very successful deal out of the box. And it proved to be, as we saw it unfold, it proved to be very tough for both of them. And I feel like this is a kind of a comparison, but it is to me just a multitude of different things that you're dealing with. And I feel like that it will, no doubt, he's a good driver. No doubt he will be is the up and coming. And I see this as just a speed bump, a hiccup in the road, and I feel like that in the near future we're going to see a lot of this turn around. But I honestly think a lot of it has to do with chemistry and the fact that you're trying to acclimate yourself to a car that you've not been used to, situations you've not been used to, and definitely talent you've not been used to.
No doubt. No doubt. That's a great point. And I was not maybe trying to sound too much alarmed about it. I don't think the baby goes out with the bathwater here.
No.
It's kind of shocking that it's 34th in points, though. I'm shocked that Josh Berry just a moment ago, 31st. Really? Golly. Like, you just think just showing up, they would be better than that. And again, but that's how good this Cup Series is. Somebody has to finish 34th.
Yep.
And right now, you've got a track house at 34th. If you looked at, so let's pick somebody else to finish there. Oh, one of the front row cars? Well, gosh, I'm disappointed that Noah Gregson's 29th in points. He's more talented than that. I've seen him win the heck out of the O'Reilly series. Somebody has to finish there. And we have, within just a few standard deviation, or just within really just one or two standard deviations of each other, do we have the top of the field and Cody Ware at the very bottom. All right. Like even Riley Herbst now with that 2311 team getting momentum up to 27th. By the way, so we mentioned, I think when Devin was logged off a moment ago, Corey Heim, I don't know how much we need to dive in. We all think he should be a Cup driver, right? Corey Heim, as expected, named the third 2311 driver for this season. His debut at 2311 was 2 years ago at Nashville, so kind of cool. They closed the loop there, and he's got a handful of races left with him this season, and that makes Riley Herbst available. It's highly believed that he and the family backing that come with him will go to Legacy Motor Club, who have a third charter lined up for next year. We don't know with RFK Racing how they're going to get their third charter because they've been having it on loan from Rick Ware. Now that charter's been bought by Legacy Motor Club. However, RFK's president, Chip Bowling, I believe is his name, said on Jeff Gluck's Gluckcast, good Thursday listening, by the way, Gluckcast, respond right here. But he said that they are willing to run as an open team. They are going to have 3 cars on the racetrack. He didn't comment on their drivers' contract statuses too much, except to say that they're not all 3 free agents. And there's a lot of conjecture out there that there are other teams interested in Chris Buescher who may have some availability. So there's a lot to watch in the silly season. Now, so we talked about Corey Heim. We've talked about some struggling drivers, the great racing in Nashville. I want to talk just briefly about the points, and not themselves and who's where, but how is this new is old again is new again chase format holding up for you guys? With all the debate that we saw a year ago, you saw Denny Hamlin score 62 points in this race. Tyler Reddick, the points leader, finished 6th and only got 37 points. He got 25 less points by having a really solid night. So, like, the wins still matter. The consistency, you see that add up over time matters. See why you're seeing Suarez and SVG still hang in there with the big dogs. So, Dan, to you first, man. Just looking at how we're shaping up with the chase. Now that we've had several months and all these different racetracks and a bigger body of work, is it living up to your expectation?
No, it's not living up to mine because I keep seeing that you're giving up something to get something. And you are getting down to the end of the race, and to really get something, you've got to be able to perform through all of the stages, not just at the beginning, not just at the end, but you got to perform through them all. And this is kind of the balancing act, but at the end of the day, you're still getting enough points. You've still got enough points that you can get through the season and still be in the top 16. And some of these cars have run conservative, and I'm not going to say conservative, consistent enough that they've got either good finishes for stage points or good finishes at the end of the race to get points and not have to rely as much on the stage points. And the whole balancing act of this is to do pretty decently in both, where you've got decent stage finishes and a good finish at the end. But the key to it, to me, to show anything, is that you've got a good finish at the end, because that's what I was going to say about the drivers, because there were, 4 or 5 drivers that break rotors during the race and KO'd the wall. And you look at that at the end of the race and say, well, these drivers didn't do so well. Well, how much attrition have you had during the year to even compare that to? And when you look at the reason, but most people look at it and say, well, he's not done too well this year. Well, let's go back and see the reasons why. Was
Yeah.
it his fault, or was it pit road? Was it something else? Because we're blending a lot of things in and giving them drivers points when really we ought to have pit road points, and we ought to have failure points and other things that factor into this. If we're going to throw all this in, we really need to do something different. But it's not any different than I thought it was going to be, and we've seen kind of, as I've said before, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but we've seen an anomaly year, and it really has been.
Okay. An anomaly in that there's been so many people having a down year?
No, it's the fact that you cannot anticipate the things that have happened to some of the teams. You couldn't anticipate that Reddick was going to come out on a roll in those first races. You could not figure that the events were going to unfold. Could you figure that Kyle Larson would be where he's at right now? And wasn't it predicted that Nashville had fell to the Chevrolet camp the last four races there, I think?
Ryan Blaney won last year, but Chevy had done really well there, and Toyota had never won there.
Yeah.
But they led a lot of laps.
And I'd forgotten about Ryan Blaney last year. But the fact that everybody had already pretty much given in, and me as well, to the fact that this would probably been a Kyle Larson or a Chase weekend.
Yeah, both they won the first two races in the Cup Series foray into Nashville Superspeedway. Hey, to your point on attrition, this event saw 10 DNFs. 10 DNFs, all but one of them due to crashes. Now, but a brake rotor explodes, you hit the wall, that's a crash. All right, but and then this is the first time I've seen where Ryan Preece wasn't listed as an engine failure; it was listed as radiator. Maybe it's not the first time, but I feel like radiator's usually not listed. They usually just put engine because it's all. But anyway, nonetheless, 10 DNFs, and I don't like to see any individual driver crash out, so to speak. But it makes it more interesting when you have things, when you have it kind of, you don't know what's going to happen. You feel like you got ticking time bombs out there a little bit.
Yeah, I can go along with that, except for one thing: when you have one organization have failures on most all of their cars.
Yeah, Trackhouse had 2 out of 3. But it was spread out a little bit. Chris Buescher had the rotor failure, whereas Keselowski crashed and Preece had a piece of rotor go into his car. Colleague, one of their 2 cars, AJ Allmendinger, had the rotor. Then you had crashes for Barry, Wallace, and Bowman, not related to brake rotors. Buescher was a brake rotor. I think I mentioned that. Zillage, that's 2 out of 3. I think I mentioned all the brake rotors there. So we're going to talk about brake rotors and Cleetus McFarland in a moment before we wrap up, looking ahead to Michigan. Real quickly, Devin, has the points lived up to what you kind of wanted it to? Knowing they were going to change it this way, are you seeing enough to feel okay about it?
I would say, I'm kind of surprised at how it's turned out so far, because look at the parity that we have. Carson Hocevar and Daniel Suarez, both top 10 in the points this season, was a real surprise I didn't expect to see. Now, some of that goes with performance,
Absolutely.
But the level of parity we've seen with these standings so far this year has been really surprising, and so far been a welcome change from what we've seen in years past, because by the time when we get to what would be the playoff point reset, these types of drivers will be more at the bottom, but they're going to be more at where they actually are in the standings. So I think it's lived up to more than what I expected this season for sure, because just with all the level of parity that we've seen, I would say this has been more than what I was expecting.
No doubt. And it's weird. We have a lot of parity, but then the Toyotas are still, it seems like, head shoulders above everybody most weeks. It's great that you could say that in the same sentence. You're getting a little bit, you're seeing Denny Hamlin have as Hamlin a moment and Tyler Reddick just as elite a moment as he's had, but you still feel like it's not so far out of reach that somebody else could jump up and do some damage, especially when you have the reset here coming up in just, can you believe, 3 months and just 12 races. All right. Now, before we move on, I want to talk real quickly about Cleetus McFarland's second O'Reilly race, which was at Nashville back on Saturday. Brake rotors. Dan, just from how much you've worked on cars over the years, any indication why this would pop up now? Why Nashville? Why summer? Have the teams, do you think, discovered something? Because it seemed on the broadcast that it was inconclusive. They were saying, hey, either brake lines were too, or not brake lines, sorry, brake pads were too hot or too cold. Yeah, they were kind of describing the ways that the temperature change could cause that moment. But it seemed like brake heating and cooling was a big talking factor, even going back to practice with some of the drivers, even Tyler Reddick and such. Daniel Suarez, I think, had him too back on Saturday. So why here, why now, Dan? And anything, should we expect more of it, do you think?
I was thinking about that as the race went on, and the comment that was made about being on a different package. You're not on that package.
Yeah, Shane
Okay,
Van Gisbergen
so
had told that in comparison to his two teammates who had the rotor issues.
okay, so think about it. Nashville is a mile and a third. It's that balance between what you'd call a short track and a as a intermediate speedway race. It's a mile and it's a mile and a third. It's not a mile. It's not a mile and a half. And as you go up in size of these racetracks, you really need less brake because you're only concerned at Daytona and Talladega about pit road. That's basically what you're concerned about. Okay, so these brake packages, as you go from a bigger racetrack to a smaller, the hardware gets a little heavier. So I just wonder if they brought a more of a speedway package to a race where you use more brake than you would at Charlotte and Atlanta and so forth, but you use less than you would at a Dover or a New Hampshire or a place like that. So maybe the package that some of those chose to bring would have benefited them weight wise by the rotating weight, but they used more brake there than they really had anticipated, or that the testing was not exactly, might have been inconclusive on what the outcome was going to be. Not enough testing because we're really not testing anywhere much anymore.
No.
Okay, so I feel like the package that was chosen to go there was a little bit lightweight to the racetrack they ended up running on.
That's a great point. Lightweight compared to the racetrack they're running on because you reach basically a higher delta between lowest corner speed and into straightaway speed.
Basically, you're using more brake than other places, and the brakes were not suited for a track that you were going to use that much brake. And as they use more brake, because let's face it, the competition is at a level now that you really push the limits on everything, and you would think that the testing would have been inconclusive on what you chose package wise to run there, but to win a race, to get to the front, the line is a thin line.
Yep.
And we're seeing everything thrown at this stuff possible to not cross that line, but to run the line.
Yep. Yep. And you got to think, if you're a team like Trackhouse that's been flailing or a team like Spire that's hit on something, you've hit on a little thing that could probably, it just could go either way a little bit. By the way, they ran the higher horsepower, lower downforce package here, the thing they've been running at the short tracks, all right, with less strakes on the underbody and all that stuff. Could that have factored in too as far as brake heat? You have to slow down more if you go faster, right? Devin, I'm not going to, unless you have a technical offering, please give that. I love what Dan had to say. But any thoughts on the brake rotor stuff besides that there was just high attrition? We saw some people and the crowd may have been hit with some of the rotors exploding. We know that a couple of cars experienced damage from other pieces of rotor.
I think it's interesting because we've gone a couple of years without the brake issues at Nashville Super Speedway. I just find it interesting that you'd go a couple of years and then, bam, all of a sudden you have brake rotor issues again. I just find that real interesting that happened on Sunday, because that was an issue, I believe, in the inaugural race at Nashville. Different car. And I would understand
which was the Gen 6 car.
Which I would understand for that because it's the first race at this track. But just being a couple of years into the Gen 7 car and then, bam, you have brake rotors. I think that was very interesting to see on Sunday night.
For sure. And again, a different package compared to last year, so maybe that was stirred into that. Now, any impressions on the Cleetus McFarland situation from Saturday's race? Jesse Love had the best car, dominated, had to pit with a loose wheel issue, basically pitted at the very tip top of his fuel window at the end of the race, but it put him in a tire disadvantage handling wise. So Love didn't win it. Allgaier stormed to the front, did his thing, and he had to start near the back because qualifying was washed out. He had crashed at Charlotte. So Allgaier comes to the front, wins the thing. But Cleetus McFarland had to start dead last on the field, had driven up to about 29th. He spun out, though, or kind of half spun to end stage one, racing for the free pass position with Logan Bearden. And then after that, really couldn't make it back, had several pit road issues, drove off with the jack, which is removing equipment for the box penalty. He then spun coming to pit road, trying to slow down to serve the pass-through penalty. And then just after that, it was so many laps down, it was just about making speed. But Dev, you know, it seems like there's a lot of attention paid to him, maybe more so than the average person that will go and run 30th. And he is set to run Michigan trucks this weekend, by the way. Cleetus McFarland is. So where do we think Cleetus stands on things?
I think he still needs a lot more experience. We saw it in the O'Reilly race in Nashville. I don't think he's ready. I bet NASCAR wants to get him in a cup ride somewhere, but I just don't think he's ready for these higher rides yet. It shows obvious. It shows when he shows up to these races. So it's an experiment. We'll see where it continues to go, but he needs to start building more experience in these lower series. Maybe go full time in ARCA, or maybe pick up a full time truck ride next year, or something like that. But get him more experience before we do these low schedules, short schedules in the upper series.
Well, and he has expressed interest with LS George or Squirrel McNutt, who's from his YouTube channel, that they're looking at more ARCA races and you know, trying to realize that to even maybe one day, possibly ever even sniff the chance of attempting a Daytona 500, you've just got to get more reps. He's also built a late model that he said before he ever runs in a race, he's going to try to run literally thousands of laps on the track that he owns there in Bradenton, Florida, the Freedom Factory, just to feel out how that thing handles. And he said on Door Bumper Clear this week, Cleetus McFarland did, that his first late model race is going to be up in Berlin, Michigan, a very famous place that Jeff Striegel runs up there in the north. Dan, real quick, just with a few minutes left, Cleetus McFarland, where do you think he is on the development arc?
It's very entertaining, but you're going to have to deliver here. And if you don't, you're going to get taken less and less seriously. And that's where I see the difference in here is a lot of drivers are very passionate about what they do. And like I said, this is entertaining, and I'm not taking away from him or anything else. It's just, let's look at this seriously on where we're going, and maybe they are, and I'm missing the point, but I'm not influenced by the influencers.
There you go. Not influenced by the influencers. I will say, it did seem like, and we've said it before, but it did seem like at first, oh, is he kind of mocking this? Is this all just a big joke, like I'm Ricky Bobby? I absolutely don't think that anymore. The dude loves cars and loves racing, and it's letting somebody who had an impression about NASCAR, which is, I can go in there and go fast and turn left. I'll do it. It's that it's not that easy. And if you're educating millions of people, it was a 4 million or however many it is on his channel, then, man.
Well, I'd love to do the same thing. So give me the keys to the car and I'll go ride.
Hey, come on, jump in. Anyway, Cleetus McFarland going to run trucks this weekend and got more ARCA races set up, and fun to watch. Nonetheless, by the way, it was Justin Allgaier, Brent Cruz, William Sawalich, good run, Sam Mayer, and Brandon Jones, your top five. Lane Riggs comes up there and makes a last lap pass in that middle of the night. I didn't stay up for it. I wanted to, but did not stay up for it. A truck race there at the Allegiance 200 at Nashville. Lane Riggs also leads your truck point standings. He beat Raja Caruth, a heartbreaker for him. He won Nashville a year ago over Chandler Smith, Ross Chastain, and Tyler Ankrum there. That was your top five there in the truck series. Ahead to this weekend, we're not going to do a huge preview except to tell you it's a doubleheader on Saturday, so no Friday races for the top three series. It is Saturday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern trucks, Then 4 p.m. right after it. Oh, sorry. It's not a doubleheader. I'm so sorry. The O'Reilly Series is off. So scratch what I just said. Trucks Saturday at 1:30, and then Sunday 3 p.m. start for the Firekeepers Casino 400 there at Michigan. So that should be fun to watch. And looking at it, let me just see here. 1 second. Let me look. Of course, my computer's going to buffer here. Just want to scroll down and just jog my memory. But it was. I thought I was right. I didn't want to say this off the hip. Guess who won a year ago in Michigan, guys? I'm not going to wait till it was Denny Hamlin. So go figure. And Tyler Reddick the year before that. That was a banger of a race. I do remember, if I could say that word 100 times. All right, it's time for final thoughts here. I'm looking forward to Michigan and breaking that down with you all next week. Devin, I saw Dua Lipa got married. I sent you the Instagram post. I didn't know she was engaged, so I'm sorry about that. Besides that, or including or besides that, any final thoughts?
Well, at least Callum Turner's not a bum like some of the other people she's dated in the past. But my final thought is just shout out to Amazon Prime with how good their coverage has been this season. They did a really good job at Nashville on Sunday night, including a deep post race that went well in past midnight here Central Time. Shout out to Prime for great coverage this past Sunday.
Absolutely. That was phenomenal coverage, in my opinion. So 100%. 100% endorsed. No one's perfect, but, man, Prime has knocked it out of the stadium the last 2 weeks there. Dan and you.
I'm looking forward to Michigan, and I'm hoping that Michigan will give us another anomaly finish, another race and finish that is very unpredictable, and looking for a first-time winner out of this class that runs at Michigan.
Hey, that would be fun to see, and Michigan could have that vibe. It's usually not an underdog track. Wow. I'm just looking back at the older races. Kevin Harvick went on a stretch 2018 through 20. Am I right? Where he won 4 out of 5 races there. And 6 out of 9, I think it was. Man, that's big. That's big.
Hope the weather doesn't win out. That's usually at Michigan what wins out at Michigan.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that's a great point. God, Kevin Harvick, you just forget how good that guy was. Hey, final thought for me at Echo Park Speedway this weekend. Echo Park Speedway. When y'all are hearing this weekend, there's the Tire Rack Street Survival Teen Safe Driving Course. That's $175. Okay, so and I'm telling you that to set it up for this. Your teen needs a hands-on safe driving course. Everybody, all right. And here's why. I'm going to give you a stat now. Doug Herbert, retired NHRA and IHRA winner, started be responsible and keep everybody safe. Brakes. After, unfortunately, his 2 sons were killed when one of them was driving in kind of a reckless driving crash back in 2008. He started that crash as advocacy on their, after their deaths, so they learned slalom and crash avoidance and anti-lock braking and dropping a wheel off the roadway and overcorrecting and all these things where if you've never done it before, you're in a moment where your life is on the line. You get to practice this in a parking lot at Echo Park Speedway the weekend after next. So June 13th and 14th, it's a free class. Okay, look up brakes. I believe it's putonthebrakes.com/registration, and you can sign up. You have to put a $100 deposit so you'll actually show up, but you can get that money back, and parents are encouraged to sign up as well. That's at Echo Park Speedway. Also related to the racetrack here, last thought is, what's today, Tuesday? What's today, Tuesday? Yeah, okay. I just blanked. Chase Elliott will be making an appearance to unveil a Children's Healthcare of Atlanta paint scheme at Truist Park on Wednesday. All right, so he and Braves one of the all-time greats, Chipper Jones, are going to be there. So I'll be sliding over to that event and having a look at things and hopefully have some good things to illuminate here on the 5 to Go podcast and on our Facebook page and socials and Instagram and all that stuff. Be sure to like our Facebook page. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube here. Like and subscribe and share and tell all the people all the things. We're on Apple and Spotify. We'll take any ratings, reviews, money, tips, free food, whatever you got, because we're all so poor and so starving. But for Devin and Dan, I'm Doug. God bless you all. Godspeed to Kyle Busch, and we'll see you all next week. And Devin, thank you for letting us interrupt your vacation, okay? This has been the 5 to Go podcast. We'll see you soon.